Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. You have tuned in to the Community Living Podcast with Kelly Reaburne, Paul Gilbert, and Michael Clogs.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Community Living Podcast here in, southern British Columbia, southern coast of British Columbia. I'm Kelly Reaburne from Vancouver, a.k.a. DJ Ray from The Late Night Show. On the phone on me is Paul Gilbert, who is the member political activist on... Yeah, well, I still see it as a kind of an activist person who does the BC Disability Caucus, and yes. Michael Clogs is with me as well. He's from White Rock, so we're pretty much all in this together on the situation of separate stuff on COVID stuff. And maybe I'll start with you, Michael. You posted stuff online on disability issues on hotels in South Surrey. Maybe you can explain more about that.
Yeah. Did you know that the province has looked for vacant hotels in the downtown east side and in Victoria to clear out, like Oppenheimer Park and Paul. You'll have to. There's a park in Victoria that I guess they have homeless camps. You'll have to remind me of the name of that camp.
Shoot, it's just by the top of my list. It's not Beacon Hill, is it? There was a park. They had a couple of places they were going to use this. The state baseball stadium is one of them. I can't remember the name of that park, but it's a park and it's on Pembroke Street in Cook.
Yeah, and so for reasons of social distancing and things like that, they decided on a couple of vacant hotels where they're going to put people up. Well, the thing of it is what winds up getting excluded is areas like Surrey, Langley, Abbotsford, to have homeless populations and homeless people camping out on the streets or sidewalk sleeping, and these people get left out of the system. It's like because they're not in what's considered to be the prominent homeless area, and it's like just the other night, my wife and I were getting ready to pick up newspapers to deliver them around the White Rock area, and there was somebody asleep underneath the bench in front of the mall where we pick up the papers, and they someone called the police and the ambulance to come assess the guy's situation. He's known to the police as being a sidewalk sleeper, and it's like there's no place for them to take him, that he stays in a familiar area. And if this gentleman has mental health issues and things like that, shipping him all the way to the downtown east side is just going to be the trauma for him. And I think that they should do something in each city to make sure that these people have a place to go. Something. There's other vacant hotels across the Lower Mainland, across BC, to actually help these people out, and they should be doing it instead of just focusing on one prominent one homeless area in Victoria and one in the downtown east side. You know?
So in most of those areas, you're saying that all of those hotels, all those vacant hotels should be replaced more of the homelessness. Am I right?
Yeah, you know, at least you say, like out here in White Rock, they have the Pink Hotel, which is slated to go under renovations with under the Hilton system. It's like it's sitting there completely empty, and if they're worried about, oh my God, they're going to rip things apart, whatever, they've already started on renovations, and they shot a movie in there, so it's got to be safe enough if the movie people are in there. It's got to be safe enough to house some people in there.
Okay.
You know.
Yep.
You know, it just seems like it's unfair that if you're not in the downtown east side, that you get left out.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
No, not a bit. But that's what they do all the time. They have their areas of awareness and areas of blindness.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. It's like why can't we open up our eyes to all areas and give people help in all areas? You know.
Yeah, Leanne Farha, who was the UN rapporteur for affordable housing, read an article in the Guardian today, and she was talking about how it's taken a deadly global pandemic to shake governments to the core and trigger an understanding that having a safe home might be central to human survival. Okay. But at the same time, she goes through all the various things they're doing, like they're deferring rents and deferring mortgage payments and deferring utility payments. That's not going to do it. Yeah. Eventually, someone has to come up with the money to pay these bills. Yeah. Or else it's like we're going to see. We're deferring the idea of evictions. Oh yeah. We're and all the social problems attached to it that underlay it. We've got huge problems in Canada that they just keep on ignoring because it's just convenient to do so for some reason. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the police in various parts of the world are still arresting people for sleeping on the street, and I mean, it's really quite ridiculous. If you have if you have no housing, how can you shelter in place?
Right.
Exactly.
Another to-do list is ensure access to emergency and long-term housing for people who are homeless, including through securing hotel and hospital rooms and other vacant units. Cease all forced evictions and evictions into homelessness. Regularize informal settlements and ensure they have access to water and sanitation. Regulate housing costs so they are commensurate with household income. And prohibit speculative investment in housing that contributes to unaffordability and evictions.
Right.
I mean, these are things that the world should be paying attention to because, I mean, the crisis is making it painfully obvious that they have to be done.
Yes. And yet we still ignore them. Well,
that's what I was posting
almost
something
completely
today that just amazed me because we got the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, which has the right to housing in it, and then we also got a segment out of the International Convention on what was it? Where did I put that? It's the UN Convention on Social and Cultural Rights. Which also guarantees the right to housing. So we have we have the right to housing in law for everybody, and we have the right to housing and law for people with disabilities, but you see no evidence of it.
Mm.
It's really kind of disturbing.
Mm.
Especially when the government keeps on talking about the rule of law.
Mm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the rule of law. Yeah. There should be more evidence of that rule.
Mm.
Yes.
Well, I got an email from one of my personnel from Spectrum, Ernie Batts. He was posting some issues on COVID-19 onto moving forward. I haven't seen most of the stuff, and I haven't even heard of what was happening with Dr. Bonnie's presentations today. So I'm going to look. I'm going to be doing all that later on after this conference and stuff. Anyways, it seems as though they just had a report on the dynamic compatible mental modeling that started in March and worked our way through May. So there were some predictions on the dynamic compartment, the modeling of what is more to come happening after May. Any thoughts on that, Paul?
You mean in terms of mental health?
Yes.
Well, yes. Well, definitely they're going to have to be doing quite a bit, because this is probably one of the most stressful times for people in decades.
Mm-hmm.
And anxiety and depression is a major problem. On top of, they talk about domestic violence involving women, but
right.
Domestic violence involving people with disabilities must be off the charts.
I bet it is.
The charts all the time.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that yet.
No, of course not. No.
But yeah, they really need to invest in shelters so that they're accessible.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if they have certainly we need everybody, women and men need shelters to escape violence, but they should be accessible. Really, it's a little. It doesn't just buy the right ones and do minor modifications on them.
Again, this was on Ernie Batts' COVID-19 update on today. He was saying about the key principles of going forward. One is to staying forward, being prepared, enroll, and following public health services advices. 2 was participating in good hygiene and hand hygiene, avoiding face everything situations. 3, staying at home and away from others if feeling ill, not going to school or work. 4, maintaining physical distance, that sort of thing. 5, making necessary contact safer with appropriate controls. That's probably what we're doing. Increasing environmental cleaning at home, considering the use. So basically, it's all on the basic issues that we're still preparing for this COVID-19. Then he went on to a conference call for support workers on May 1st. The Canadian CLBC, which is the Community Living in British Columbia, hosted the conference call to support workers on Friday, May 1st, with Simon Schwelzer described a great set of notes on the call. So I'm assuming, we're doing a lot of things on the Spectrum side of things. Did anybody do the speakers on the call with Shane Simpson, Minister of Social Development?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody had any speakers on Shane Simpson. I did see the first report of it from him when he was in Vancouver, but I didn't got a chance to hear most of his other reports and stuff if it was in Victoria or the latest issues for that matter.
Well, no, sorry. The last thing I got from him was of course, about the housing idea for the homeless.
Okay.
That was Shane Simpson, yeah.
Okay.
So outside of that, I haven't seen another press conference for him.
Okay, Paul.
Yes, I look forward to that. The one thing that I thought was really interesting that we're all very interested in social distancing.
Yeah.
Have you noticed how narrow the grocery aisles are?
Oh, my grocery area is like priority to seniors and stuff on my groceries, the grocery area where I work. So.
Oh, I like the fact that you can get in at certain hours if you're seniors.
Yeah.
But the grocery aisle for my drugstore, I think, is about 5 feet wide.
Right.
Big sidewalks as well. There's an awful lot of sidewalks are awfully narrow.
Very narrow.
And some say Toronto was talking about doing something about that to fix it so people didn't have that problem. But
right.
But Dave, what's his name again? Dave Lepescu was saying that the program will actually make things worse for people with disabilities if city planners fail to think about accessibility for all people. Lepescu told people. He said through it. What was it? Basically, he's saying that inaccessibility is an accident. Accessibility is planned.
Mm-hmm.
So they really need to plan in accessibility from the front end, just like every other project that's ever done. If they don't plan in accessibility on the front end, it isn't accessible.
Okay.
So yeah,
Michael.
The thing of it is there are consultants that actually help make this happen so that you do have the accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
You mean like Rick Hansen?
What's that?
You mean like Rick Hansen?
No, actually, I mean like there's I have to recall Emily's last name in Toronto. She's in Ontario, but she is actually a person with a disability, and I also mean like Alexander Magnuson, who has autism.
Right.
Yes. You know, he's another person with a disability, and he's also part of the Semi-Advocate Society also.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, but
people are not the people that usually get hired either as consultants.
No, but people like David Lepescu. Lepescu's a lawyer in Ontario. He's blind and he does a lot of accessibility surveys on new buildings, showing how inaccessible they are. It's a major problem still because the companies doing construction don't necessarily pay much attention, and it's something that it's very hard to fix after it's built.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with like Alexander Magnuson is they want to go in before while you're still planning, you're still with the architect. You know, and they want to help plan it before you start construction, because once you start laying the foundations and framing, it's all over with. You know, it's done now. So you have to get in there while it's still being planned. So you have to plan, start planning the whole thing from conception. It's what these guys have been saying, and I don't see that ever happening.
It almost never does, and even when they have people, a friend of mine did the design for the pool out in Bondafuca. She organized the whole evaluation process, and then they ignored half of what she said. It's not as bad as it could have been. I mean, it doesn't have, at least it's not like the Esquimalt pool where you have to be lifted in and out.
Right.
But the designs could be far better. I remember this in Newton in Surrey. There's a wave pool where you can actually roll your wheelchair right into the water.
Yeah, I heard something about that. And Newton Wave Pool is very interesting. It brings back memories when I was a young person, just going over there for the summer or any other day just to catch a wave.
Oh, it was wonderful. I was a one-to-one worker back years and years ago, and I used to take clients there all the time. We had great fun.
Yeah, that's great.
I have to say, I've never actually been in there.
Believe me, it's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. I do remember because I've gone into the Newton branch of the library. That actually seemed to be very accessible. So that whole complex seemed to be very very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So but I would imagine that somebody went in there while they were still sitting with the architect to make sure that it was actually designed that way.
Yeah, that's what it takes. All right. Well, it's like housing right now. There's I think Selena Robinson said 2% of the housing going in is being made to be accessible. Well, which is a little funny because 25% of the population is disabled.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know.
When you talk about Selena Robertson, you ever notice that she always carries around an apple box with her?
Really? Oh, so she can stand on it.
Right. Because she is just inches. I think she's only like an inch or two away from actually being listed as a proportional dwarf, which is a disability. Because
she's really short. She's very short.
I remember towering over her. When I went to shake her hand to give her a hug when I met her, I actually had to almost get down, really bend down to reach her because shortness is another disability. And when people build houses, they do not consider somebody who might not be much more than, say, I think she's 4'11", just under 5 foot.
Wow. Yeah, it's a major problem.
They don't build houses considering that.
I was very pleased with her this last week because I found out the housing registry is inactive at the moment with BC Housing. They've frozen it.
How so?
They've frozen evictions, but they've also frozen the registry altogether.
Right.
So nobody's moving. They're not actually bringing new people into BC Housing, but which is something that was a concern to me because I was being rent evicted. I managed to fix that, so they won't evict me until I find housing. But finding that out was kind of disturbing. But I phoned Selena Robinson's office and I heard back within half an hour, and they explained what they were planning on doing. It's just temporary. And I imagine BC Housing is overwhelmed at the moment with dealing with all the homeless people and everything, so it's understandable.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was quite amazed that Selena's office responded so quickly.
All right.
The thing that keeps on coming up over and over again for staff people who work with people with disabilities and the disabled themselves is that there's not enough personal protective gear out there for them yet. And we don't seem to be a priority yet.
Right.
So there's a lot of organizations protesting that sort of thing. It's happening all over the world. The same problem. I wish they could speed up on their manufacturing, but I guess we started doing the manufacturing in March when we should have started doing the manufacturing in December. But at least we're not as doing poorly as we could be.
Yeah. Well, some of that was we globally we are very dependent on 3M to produce some of these products, especially like the N95 mask. And actually, President Trump
Okay.
Donald Trump when he hit them with a fine and ordered them to stop shipping around the world, it caused a problem because they were the main manufacturer of especially of these masks and other versions of the PPE gowns and face shields and things like that because they manufacture a lot of plastics.
Yeah.
And it froze the world. And now you're talking about that Canada has to find other manufacturers within its own borders to produce these products. And if you heard anything from Andrew Scheer, he criticized Justin Trudeau for allowing some of those products to be shipped outside of Canada, but we still have to look globally at what's going on, and there are other areas besides ourselves that actually need these products also. So keep some for us, and then share some with the rest of the world. I don't see any other solutions to that.
Okay.
No, I agree completely. That's where no man is an island.
Right. Exactly.
No, the Conservative Party's been making a huge bubble. First, they attack our public health officer for being Oriental, and claim that she's not really Canadian. It's racism is it's just absolutely shocking. That they would do that.
In today's press conference, he actually refused to directly respond if somebody asked him a question like, should Canada trust Dr. Tam and her advice? And he refused to respond. He absolutely evaded the question, and he kept going back to Justin Trudeau and how Justin Trudeau needs to be held accountable for what it is he's doing, but he refused to answer the question about his mistrust of Dr. Tam.
It's kind of interesting because they don't have a lot of foresight because the Chinese Canadians tend to vote Conservative. They're not going to vote Conservative if the Conservatives are going to be racist towards Chinese Canadians or all Oriental Canadians because they don't seem to be able to tell the difference. No. I was amazed at Mike Pompeo claiming he was on the news claiming that the virus was manufactured in a lab in China, and then somebody corrected him and said, I thought the evidence clearly shows that it wasn't manufactured in the lab and it's completely organic. And he said, oh, yes, that's true.
Well, I think the worst one on that one was Donald Trump saying that the Chinese manufactured this virus to keep me from being reelected.
Yeah. Oh, golly.
Okay.
A new level of narcissism.
Yeah. Well, you're tuned into the Community Living Podcast here on the podcast. I'm Kelly. On the phones are Michael and Paul. This is good a conversation here right now. Anyways, this is really great. Paul, you wanted to talk about PPEs. Yeah, so maybe more explain about the situations on disability on the personal PPP, personal and technical equipment. All right, that's what I was going to do the abbreviations on that. Let's continue on that, on disabilities, on the personal protective equipment.
Well, the news media, the stories of the news media keep reporting that there's just not enough for people who work with people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're not really under the healthcare umbrella, which we should be, because you don't have a disability unless you have an impairment, and isn't that the definition of being vulnerable? So we really should be. It should be included.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe when Adrian Dix and John Horgan listen to your show, they'll consider it.
Adrian Dix and maybe Dr. Bonnie Henry.
Yes, when they hear your show, they'll probably fix
Right.
that problem.
Right. Okay, Michael, do you have any comments on it?
Well, I know a few people they do home care, and what I've heard is there is no availability of the personal protective equipment for people who are doing home care. It's very limited. So, this includes the elderly as all kinds of people that have some sort of a disability or they're elderly. It's going to all of the hospitals and the emergency rooms, and none of it is getting to other people that need to actually care for individuals.
Right.
No?
It would be interesting to hear what they have to say about this issue between both Adrian and Bonnie on that.
Yeah, the disabled are incredibly vulnerable, and if the workers and working with people with disabilities don't have protection, they're going to get sick, and they'll make people with disabilities sick.
Yeah,
it really needs to be. They really need to gear up and distribute it better. But that's the whole thing with the article of the convention that talks about what the government's responsible for protecting people with disabilities in humanitarian crises and emergencies.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything about that, and as a result, there's been no planning. And if they'd planned it, that they'd be thinking along those lines already. It wouldn't be something we'd have to convince them of.
Now, it seems interesting. I mean, we get a lot of reports on the Vancouver Coastal Health, the Fraser Health, the Island House, the Interior House by the ministry and by Dr. Bonnie Henry. But I'm just wondering if we can just break it down to either people that are having abilities and maybe having people with disabilities dealing with this COVID-19. I don't know if there's any results onto those kind of cases or not.
Yes, it seems like they're only considering the healthcare, the healthcare sector exclusively, and not
right.
the people who are vulnerable.
Right.
It needs to be expanded. Hopefully, they'll learn to do that quickly as soon as they can actually have enough protective gear.
Right.
Because it's putting us at risk. I've been waiting for reports of problems happening in homes for people with disabilities, and they are happening, but they've not been happening in BC so much as in the U.S.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as for me, I know everybody needs to be in good shape of dealing with this COVID, and of course, Dr. Bonnie has announced that all public people, you and I, should be tested on sort of like a regular basis, especially during seniors and other types of people. And of course, including myself, because I'm diabetic as well, type 2. So those kind of...
I'm just falling apart, I'll tell you.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously they're doing a good job of doing it. And
I'm very impressed with. I mean, aside from the complaints about not ratcheting up to protect more people with disabilities fast enough, I am impressed with the level of with how well BC's done so far. But given that the challenge that they started with, but I really hope they'll pay more attention to us.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not just from our different types of culture, but it's also throughout the rest of the communities, like First Nations people, how they're dealing with the COVID situations. All sorts of different levels.
That's scary because that's particularly scary because they have a very high level of disability in their communities, 35%, and also there's so many problems that need to be addressed there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the average, as they say, white people for that matter. It's all sorts of different types of cultures, multicultural issues that do, I wouldn't say come to Canada, but born in Canada, have stayed in Canada for the rest of their lives. I could imagine, right, Paul?
Yes, I wonder. I wonder actually about some of the cultures because the communitarian cultures, like a lot of the Indo-Canadian cultures and things like that, they focus on relying on family first and don't like to go out and rely on public support so much. I wonder if that's having any effect on if that's working for them because it's it can be a problem if they don't reach out to the community supports that are there.
Right, Michael.
Well, that's one of the things that we mentioned. Of course, Dr. Bonnie Henry and Adrian Dix. They are concerned about that. The fact that some of these communities that either one they're afraid to go seek medical attention because hey, I'm going to get the virus, or because culturally, like no, you have to keep everything wrapped within the family and the community. Now, all the rest of that is the hospital system is outside of that. It could be causing other health problems, and they're trying to. And how do you convince people that it is safe or it's okay to use the healthcare system, right?
Yes, it's a difficult dynamic, and it's one of the reasons why you don't see disability rights organizations that are made up of racialized minorities.
Right.
I mean, their culture is just a little bit different, and they don't do those sorts of things. They're more isolated. It's a problem, but I imagine it'll change over time. It's just that it's hard. It must be harder on people with disabilities who can't reach out to the community for the supports because it's not really acceptable.
Yeah. A few years ago, we did do an interview with somebody who was excelling in our community, and he had a disability, but according to the culture that he grew up in, he should have been just a throwaway person.
In what way?
Because he had a cognitive disability.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to point fingers at any particular culture, but there are cultures that are within the borders of Canada that actually view if they have a child that has a disability that culturally they're a throwaway person and that person now gets ignored. So how do you get services as a government or as a society? How do you get services to that person to help them thrive when they're their surrounding family just sees them as a toss away anyhow.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's a tragedy. There needs to be much more one-on-one support through the school system, I think. But I remember years and years and years ago, I had a client whose family was convinced that his autism was going to go away one day.
Yep.
That it was just going to disappear. It was, I don't know. There's a lot of different perceptions about people with disabilities in different communities.
Right. Yeah. Any final thoughts?
While we're talking about care for people with disabilities, there was I consider this to be an absolute tragedy. It was at the Peace Arch Hospital where a lady, she's I guess she was just 40, and she was completely left alone, isolated because of the level of her cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
She was unable to communicate. She's completely stripped of her voice.
Right.
And I know that the care areas at the Peace Arch Hospital are on total lockdown. They're not allowing any visitors at all,
right.
Which meant that this lady was left without a voice at all because she needed somebody to be able to express what was going on for her. And she passed away because she was completely left alone. So that's really an absolute tragedy.
Very sad.
And it's the ultimate of what we're talking about, and nobody should be left like that.
No.
You know, and that's the whole point of what we're getting at is that if you have a disability, you're still a valuable member of our society, and we should be treating everybody with that respect and value.
I agree.
Any last thoughts, Paul?
Well, on that happy note, good point, Michael. Yes. Well, I'll just let people know that the Disability Caucus keeps on rolling on, and you're welcome to come visit us on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and we'll chat.
Cool. Good to know. Michael?
All right.
How they get contacted?
Just clue into depictions.media and tune in to everything that we're broadcasting.
Yeah,
so
I know
we broadcast everything from this to the actual press conferences. So
yeah, I know we missed last week's part, and basically, I just wanted to get in front of between the two of you of the what's happening on the out front on this COVID-19 situation. And yeah, I mean, if you have any comments, you can contact them as well. You can contact me by my email, send to DJ Ray, that's all in one word, at gmail.com. Although this is my musical version of the show, the late night show that I do on both Mixcloud and on Co-op Radio, both. But you can also send in our comments as well on the topics that we were talking about. All right, I will let you two go. Thank you very much for the episode, and we'll do a podcast whenever we can, but it's not going to be like every single time, every single week for that matter. So,
yeah, okay.
All right.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and I'll let you guys go. Thank you all the best, and stay safe there.
Okay, you too.
Yeah, take care.
Bye for now, Kelly.
Bye-bye. All right, so that is the podcast. Sorry about the mingled communication situation. There was once a drop call, so hopefully Michael will edit this sort of situation. And the lost communications on the second part of it. So my apologies, although communication's not doing all that great. But anyways, that's life on the COVID situations. Even though if I were get a chance to meet Michael, or not Michael, maybe Michael over there, that would be great to do a conversation, or go over to Victoria to see Paul. Either one of those two. Anyways, yeah. I will see you all later. Depending on the schedule, could be every Monday, could be any other day. You never know. Anyways, yep. Check in and we'll see each other. Have a great day and talk to you again soon. This has been the Community Living Podcast.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.